because the people that we work for have incredible ratings that serve all the disaster sites. So I kind of almost passed out when I looked at the line items that we had won, to a point where I got a little scared, because now I said, oh my God.
Hey, real quick, I want you to head over to freebidtemplates.com to download my bid opportunity response letter template that I submit to the government when I'm answering bid opportunities. Head over to freebidtemplates.com right now to get your free template.
Do you believe, I know it's hard to say this, a lot of times people say, if I realized how much work this thing would have taken in the beginning, I might not have started.
I knew it was going to be a lot of work, and that's
okay.
One thing. I never really considered myself a businessman, and but I do know I can do one thing so good that it's kind of led me to where I am today, is that I could just work hard. I could put my head down and just can push through it, and I take it as a challenge. So the harder the work is, the more I want to pursue that avenue to see what I can, to push through it and get to the other side.
Interesting. Okay, and I feel the same way. I saw something somewhere, I don't know if it was on your IG or the website, where you guys were offering summer internship programs.
Yes.
Okay. Did you yourself, growing up as a young man, attend a summer internship program?
I did not. I had applied for a few of them, and in the construction industry, you always had to know somebody to get you into, that company. So I'd always just, wherever I could work and get hired, that's where I fell. And usually it would be for, summer projects. I'd go find a mason or a roofer to be just a general laborer.
Oh, so you worked throughout the summers in school?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
well, that makes sense.
High school, I, always had a job landscaping, changing oil at Jiffy Lube. So I was always staying busy, because I knew that's one thing I was good at, is working with my hands, not being a student in school.
Right. So
I do that after school. And then same thing, trying out college, I always had a good construction job to, make ends meet, but keep things going on my other end and paying for school. So the military had brought so many good things to me, because I didn't want to be one of those people walking out of college in debt. Wanted to, take on some responsibility and learn some leadership skills, which that fulfilled completely, which put me on the path I am today. Is, everything is really hinged off my service in the military, and just learning that structure and just implementing that on my day to day. So
I can tell you, man, you seem like a really, really humble guy. That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's my whole family being public servants and veterans. It's one of those things that just kind of comes in our character, where and it's almost to a fault where nothing is ever good enough, because you could always do a little bit more. You could always work a little bit harder. And my wife will always say that's my downfall, because even when I go home at night, the wheels are always turning. I'm on the computer. I'm looking for opportunities just to keep the company growing. And now I have, close to 50 employees, and they have families. So now it's really incentivizing to work even harder to make sure that we can sustain this operation and continue to grow, and, so they could have fruitful lives, working here as employees.
Sure. Great. That's wonderful. So you started off doing residential services.
Yep. We did residential heating oil delivery service for about 6 years before we branched off into any type of other commercial oil or propane deliveries.
Now, so 6 years, so now it takes you around 2013. When did you do your first, or can you remember your first government contract? I know before we were talking about you started doing work with DLA. I know you've done some work with FEMA. When did you do your first government contract? Can you remember that?
I think that started right around 2000. Well, 2014, someone had mentioned, and the business was starting to grow, and we were, getting known locally. But again, we had haven't traveled outside of that residential arena. So, my service area is north of Boston, and someone had mentioned you're a veteran, you should get certified. And I had no idea what any of that certification meant. I just thought, okay, I'm a veteran, and I could say I'm a veteran-owned business, but
Right.
a certain process behind that. So I started at the Massachusetts level to get certified, which led me into, okay, if you're going to get certified on the state level, get certified on the national level through the federal side. So we did that, and that's when I really had to start pursuing, how I can make this work for us and what this can do for us. Because right away, I got a piece of paper, and that was it. I was certified, but it didn't change my business.
No, of course, right.
Whatsoever. And what a lot of people don't realize is we've been in business just over 12, 13 years. But, we had to get to a certain point and establish our worth before we could really take it to the next level. And taking it to the next level is pursuing those opportunities on the government end. You still got to bring that service. And then it's, oh, by the way, we're also a certified veteran-owned company.
I love
so
that.
when I go to a lot of these conventions to just do a meet and greet, and my arena is very limited for small business opportunity because, selling oil to the government usually goes to the big players that are very competitive. They have, the whole supply chain management down to, buying in such large quantities that a lot of small businesses can't compete against them to meet, the margins that they can work off of. So putting a face behind a lot of this stuff helped a lot. And just kind of tackling that avenue. And it was a lot of work just to even get one contract. And it was a little contract, but again, it was dipping my toes into something that turned out to be a lot bigger than I thought. So it was a little discouraging at first when I realized, I thought I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to have all these opportunities. And it was like, no, you actually got to get out there and work your butt off to now network and let people know who you are, but let them know what type of service you can bring them.
That's interesting that you mentioned that kind of, I didn't even solicit that answer, but that's a really great answer that I think a lot of small businesses oftentimes miss is the fact that you have this piece of paper doesn't guarantee contracts. It doesn't translate into contracts. No one's going to come knocking on your door. You still have to put in all the hard work, all the effort. And that's for someone who had 6 years of past performance.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And
so at this point, you had financials, you had tax returns, you had history, you had a track record, all these things that you think like, hey, I'm here, I've arrived.
Exactly. Yeah. And the biggest thing is, as I'm learning this even more is, we have our own assets. We have our own oil trucks, and 9 times out of 10, it's myself and my guys coming to make your delivery. And that's no matter where it is in the country. So we've been kind of spreading our wings a little bit to give ourselves a better network and a longer reach so we can grow into other parts. But right now we saturate New England very well. We can self-perform everything we do up in this region and even the tri-state. So, there's a lot to be said for the companies that go out there and build it. And everything that these contracts are meant to do is to help a small business not only put their foot in the door, but getting that contract and actually building your business. Right. That's what it's meant to do. It's not meant to have these guys sitting behind a computer subbing out all this work while it's only them. Like I've hired since taking on government contracts, 25 new positions.
Wow.
Brand spanking new positions. So that's what these programs are really
for. That's what it is to do.
Develop your company, build it. We purchased an old oil terminal, reactivated an old railroad switch, and that's bringing in more jobs. So what started off as very small at the time, I only had, I think, 10 employees. And, just through natural organic growth in the Boston area, being seen doing some bigger deliveries and whatnot. People see that as being, a good, well-developed company. So they more opt to do business with you versus,
now you have a foundation.
Yeah. So it did everything that, they're designed to do.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now tell us about, like you said, turning on the switch to a facility that was vacant that you took over.
Yeah, that took place.
I read about it, but since you put it out there, we'll go ahead and jump right to it.
This was actually the perfect storm of opportunities that came up, and a few things hinged off this being successful. But like with every business move, there's massive risk behind it. I take great pride in growing my company, and I've always bought old oil trucks and fixed them up, and even the storage tanks that we have at our facility are used that I'd go find. So I'm really building this thing from a ground up, and me and my wife took a risk on buying this old oil terminal. Had a little bit of storage, and it had 2 buildings for us to hopefully grow into. At the time, 2017. So we made that move in June. And this was my real first big performance that I did for the government and FEMA when the hurricanes rolled through, and it's Hurricane Harvey and Irma.
Mm-hmm.
We got called by the prime contractor for these bids.
Okay.
They called us to assist. And so when you're reaching up to the New England area for assistance,
that's what I was thinking. I mean, that's a long ways away.
That's a reach. So it was one of these things. I had networked with a company down at a convention that I didn't realize was the FEMA prime contractor for this stuff. We kicked it off well. And again, it was mostly just, hey, I'm Bob Brown, and I met one of their operating managers, and we hit it off. I said, if you ever need anything, and usually, that means like, hey, thanks, I appreciate it, and you never see that person again.
Yeah.
Well, that guy took my number, and he needed something, and I told him I'd be there if you needed me. And he knew my background of being a firefighter and a veteran. So he asked me, he's like, could you come down here and bring us diesel fuel and gasoline full from Massachusetts and drive down there? I said, absolutely, whatever you need. So I got the guys rolling. We were able to deploy within 24 hours of the phone call. So we sent a convoy of trucks down,
Mm-hmm.
and they ended up staying down there for about a month, all the way down into Florida Keys, where
you went all the way to the Keys.
Yeah. My
Get
guys
out of here.
Yeah, we were stationed all over, mostly Florida at that point, because then Irma was the secondary wave that kind of depleted everybody that was serving Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a stronghold there, and my guys were sleeping on top of their oil trucks. We were eating MREs. It was just like being in the military. So it was a good first performance.
Right.
And at the time, I had submitted a bid for the DoD contracts up in COG 2 region. So those results weren't out yet, and I was only assuming, they say, hey, put your number on this, and you'll be lucky if you get a couple of them. So That's what we did. I put my number on a bunch of stuff, and I was expecting to get 1 or 2 sites, and there's many line items. So somewhere up to 600. So it's plenty to go around, so to say. That's what I did. But kind of being down there and performing under that FEMA umbrella and working for a prime contractor, which is good for a lot of companies that are small that just get newly certified, is not to bid on something direct. If you team up with a prime contractor,
mm-hmm.
that's where you're going to start growing, and they are able to fulfill a supplier diversity quota if they
mm-hmm.
use you in certain contracts,
right.
and you're able to get a taste of what this stuff is all about.